So thank you everybody for coming. We have a full house. That might look like a ham shack some of us used to have. And you can actually clean all that up and make it look like this. And this is a full contest station, and we don't see a single radio because it's in another room. It's downstairs. It might be in a different country for all we know. I'm going to put the boots on. When I'm at my cottage where my remote is, this is my desk. 200 feet away in the boathouse is all my equipment. That's an older picture. When I do contests, I find I can't sit as long. So that's actually a crank-up desk. So it's good core exercise to be calling CQ contests standing on one foot and doing the foot switch with the other because I'm not a Vox person. And then at home, because I play with different remote stuff, this doesn't even look like this today. I have my satellite station or my weak signal station with my transverters, and I got some relays and simple stuff. If you were here last year, you saw the same picture. Doesn't look like that. I have a better solution, and I'll talk about that in the end. So why do we do remote? Well, maybe it's like the first picture. We want to get the equipment off the desk. Maybe you want to look neater and tidier. You can now at least put it on the floor. You can put it in the rack behind you. You can put it in a different room. You can put it in a different country. Thanks to, obviously I'm pro Flex, but only because that's the answer today in terms of remote operating. Flex Radio was designed from the ground up to do this. We have a lot of clubs that have Flex radios for club operation. We have, how many plane owners are in here? More than that's what I thought. Have you been part of a conglomerate? There's 4 or 5 of you on an airplane, but if you had, well, we have a bunch of guys some of them have gone into assisted living or whatever, and they now share a ham shack. Maybe one of their members is able to host everything. And guess what? And I didn't put a slide up here for Remote Ham Radio, RHR, but those guys are here today. And if you get to the point where you sell the house, you don't have the real estate, you're in an HOA, the dollar a minute might sound expensive, but if you sell all your stuff and put it in a bank, it takes a long time to go through that bucket of money. And you know what? You never have to climb a tower, hang a dipole, solder a PL259 in your lifetime, and yet you get a world-class station. I talked to Rock and Ray about that today, and it's been an amazing business for them, and they still continue. And they use all Flex Radio under the covers. The reason why is it works. So as I said, anywhere, we want simple access for anywhere. My goal is to make stuff as plug and play as possible. We're beyond the creator stage in remote operating. 10 years ago, you were building pies, you were soldering cables, you were, just gluing it all together using tools like Mumble or Skype or whatever. I haven't heard anybody using Skype for HF radio in a long time, and I did for 10 years. We're past that today, which is great. I talked to Laurie Hicks, my VP, before I left. I went, every question I've had today, everybody that's walked up to me has had something to do with remote operating. It is so mainstream. This room was not full last year. This room is full today, so thank you all for coming. And you want it to just work. I'm a techie geek. I'm ecstatic when stuff just works. And, I still get frustrated with my iPhone because not everything just works some days. I phoned my wife to reset a radio because it's at the house. And she goes, I can't hear you, you're breaking up. And I was like, anyway. So here's what we're going to talk about. The big picture, a little bit about internet. I'm not going to spend any time on a lot of these. Your choice of radio, I think I know that answer. The remote PC, you've heard me talk about the remote PC before. I'm going to have a little better diagrams on that. I'm going to VPN truly made easy. How many of you are scared away from doing a VPN because you got to go figure out logins and port forwards and okay, this should solve most of your problems. You CGNet, Starlink guys, you still have an issue. Pay the 20 bucks. It's just the easy answer for the commercial. PSTRotator, some equipment command and control. And some cool hardware solutions, like this black box. It's not my best shot, but this is pretty much the same setup left and right, listening to the same signal at the same time on, let's say, a 0 dB gain antenna. Yeah, you could shoot a lot of holes in this, why this could be a better picture. Signals are actually generally the same strength when you watch it all the time, but look at the noise floor. That at times, in this case it was 8 or 9 dB difference. That's between looking at the band some days and going, look, the band looks dead. And then you hear the big guns working people. And the big gun is down the street. So the propagation's there. And that's why one of the reasons I do remote. So this was an HF6V ground-mounted vertical. This is at the remote. This is a 40-meter end-fed half-wave in an urban area. And I've done work to mitigate noise, and I still have, well, let's see. This is minus 120. This is minus 11. Usually it's a lot worse. All the spurs, by the way, you'll see some slides with these spurs in them. They're land noise. When you start seeing them about 30 kilohertz apart, land noise. Chokes. And they also affect receiving. Chokes for, we used to grow up with chokes, right? Just for RFI and transmitting. Both ways. RF isn't funny. It'll attach itself to anything. So the big picture.
You said 30 hertz?
But 30 kilohertz. And if later on, I think I have a slide, you can see that they're not really strong. But now with waterfalls and pan adapters, they annoy the crap out of you, but they won't really obliterate a signal in some cases. So we need to consider, like always, antennas, how complicated is the antenna system. The easiest remote is with a great all-band antenna, like a vertical and a couple of radials. Other than 80 meters, it'll be amazing. I have lent my test station, which is on an HF6V, to so many people. I have a friend that contests on it, and he essentially says if I can hear it, I can work it. It takes a bit of skill. It's not blasting in there at 100 watts. I'm not an end-fed half-wave guy, so it's an antenna of convenience, but my rough testing is there's about a 20 dB difference in performance between a simple, say, a dipole for 40 and trying to get an end-fed half-wave to perform on 40 well. But if it works for you and that's all you can do, that's great. So your AC or DC power, how are you going to control that? We'll talk about that in the end a little bit. And then internet. Is it terrestrial or is it non-terrestrial, like Starlink? Starlink has many good solutions. We've got a bunch of customers on it. As I say, pay the 20 bucks a month. It just makes it a lot easier. If you up to a challenge and you want to deal with their CG NAT issues, you can. It's a lot of work.
What's the $20 for?
With Starlink, 20 bucks gets you what do they call it, a business account? It's with a static IP. It's worth the 20 bucks. If you don't spend the 20 bucks, you look like this. So here's my big picture. And here's how I operate. I sit at home. I have my radio here, or I don't have my radio. I have me here. I have a microphone, a foot switch. I have paddles. I happen to use a Maestro for my interface, or my PC, or a mixture of both. And on the remote side, I run a computer, like an IBM ThinkCenter. They're $200 on Amazon, refurbished. I put Windows 10 on it, Pro. You can put 11 Pro on it if you want. Spend the money for Pro. You can buy Pro for 10 bucks. You can get keys, and they work. I run all my ham radio software here. And you've heard this lecture before if you've seen me speak. In 20 years, that has never been the problem of something not working. I make sure that it automatically powers up if the power goes down. There's a UPS on it. There's a UPS on most things. I don't really have a UPS on the radio power supply. It'd be nice if I had a power conditioner. And you have to test that, get it all working and going, and then just walk out and you yank the plug. and then plug it back in and see if it comes like you expect. Fortunately, in today's world, it does. The banking industry has been doing this for, I don't know, 30 years. For those of you who've worked in this world, you know, remote desktop's not a big scary thing. There's a whole bunch of solutions from TeamViewer, Chrome Desktop, Anywhere, AnyDesk, et cetera, et cetera. And like I said, I have all my stuff here. The advantage too is your buddy, your brother wants to borrow your Ham Shack station for a while. You just give him the login credentials to the computer. Everything's configured. It's ready to go. He doesn't have to go reconfigure. Hey, I want to run FT8. Well, it's all ready to go. And I lost my train of thought. There was another cool thing. Anyway, everything's ready to go. And I do run updates during the winter when I'm not there. Hey, Steve, there's a couple of chairs here. And I actually have two of them. On the second one, I run Grid Tracker, and I run CW Skimmer, or called SDC Skimmer. And because back home, I do 2 remote desktop connections, and I can put them in different windows now.
What is the remote radio software?
Okay, so the remote radio software in the Flex world is Smart SDR and Smart Link. So that's what I said earlier, thanks for asking. And in the ICOM world, RBAS or the LAN 10, which you need to figure out that connection. So that's why I'm going to skip over most of the radio stuff, because that's pretty much plug and play. This is now talking about the supporting tools you need. And again, your remote might be something you have to drive to, or it might be in the basement.
So you run your software, and everything's on that one machine.
Yeah.
But then you said something about Grid Tracker on another.
Oh, I have another one in the same area.
So you can do both.
Yeah, I run two different remote desktop concurrent sessions.
Not all on one computer.
They're not all on one computer. I did that because those are so inexpensive, and I like multiple screens. That's all. Somebody else? Okay. Good so far?
So are you mapping into 2 different machines?
Yes, I'm using 2 different computers. So when you I use remote desktop because I use a VPN. You'll see where we're going with this. And so I run 2, they're called RDP, sessions, one to one computer and one to another. And then you could drag them around your main Windows computer. I have 3 monitors, actually, and I really like the ultra-wide monitors, which is like 2 monitors, but they're in one, and so I split them. But that's just... Okay, internet. This is going to be a brief slide. Low latency is far more important than bandwidth. So even though you might have a gigabit, it might be crap for us. It'd be okay for streaming movies, but if it's not low latency, then you're going to hear clicks and drops on the air no matter whose radio you use. Gamers are all about this. Fortunately, there's more gamers than us, so they're really good at nagging the ISPs about this. This is a Flex radio screen where my round trip time is 26 milliseconds to 100 miles away. Get the number, and then we see some bumps where it can go higher. Those are still really small numbers. Don't get excited about them. If you start seeing those in the thousands or above 500 milliseconds, then start to worry about it. And the internet's not linear, right? It goes up and down and slows down and speeds up. And this is why hand sending CW remotely is so tough. And we're going to talk a little bit about that near the end. So Flex Radio has their software called SmartLink. It comes with their radios. It's a plug and play software. You turn on the radio, you run through a couple of setups. It's a little bit more complicated than setting up a Gmail account for the first time. It's secure, can't be hacked, and it's just like sitting in front of the radio. Hand sending CW, as I said, is really difficult because you think, hey, it's just a dot and a dash. I could probably turn on and off, or maybe just send an on command, an off command, an on command, an off command really fast, and maybe I'll get some CW at the end. Well, guess what? You will. You get something at the end, but it's not going to sound anything like CW. Well, I've tried it. The way Flex Radio sends CW, and Elecraft does something similar, although Eric wouldn't tell me exactly, but it's got to be the same idea, is we actually send timing elements in terms of milliseconds. How long to go into transmit? 12 milliseconds. How long to go into receive? 13 milliseconds. How long to go in transmit? 36, okay, dot dash. And that gets sent to the radio then sends the CW. The beauty of this is if you send like crap or you're using a bug, that's what comes out the other end. You still send like crap. And WinKey or remote, and this is not putting them down at all, but the way that technology works is I hand send an A, da-da. The WinKey or remote or similar will decode that and say, hey, Mike sent an A, great. Sends the letter A, it's called an ASCII computer letter, all the way to the radio. The radio goes, got your A, and then it sends an A. So it's always a character behind. Well, that's not so bad for E, T, a 0, da, da, da. It's like, you know, it's like being on a party line when you're 5 long. Who knows what that is? You're really dating yourself. Our cottage was actually 5 long. It really interrupted a lot of card games. But so that's the whole point. And Flex realized this back in day one, where they created this keying system that uses this timing element process. Really slick. And how many have used Flex radios with CW remote? Okay, am I right? It just works, right? You know, if the internet really hiccups, stuff happens, but. So the choice of HF radio for remote may not be the radio you own today. You know, you could use the Porsche to pick up a refrigerator to take it home, but it's not going to end well for the Porsche type of thing. So there are better radios for running remote. All of Flex's series, ICOM 7300 with the RBAS software works reasonably well. I actually got it working. It's a bit more setup. The 6 and 8000 series. You just want to get started? I had a gentleman come in today. I don't know if he's in the room. He said he's going to be operating from a rainforest. So I said, oh, he was worried about humidity. Now, I'm in a pretty humid environment, but that's 100% all the time. So I told him to find a used 6300 because if something happens, it's not that much. And we do this in model airplane flying. And we talked to Gerald, our founder, and there was no reason we thought that he couldn't pull the boards and spray them with conformal fluid, okay, because it's all waterproof, cover the connectors, and go from there. And I think he's going to be very successful. He does it right. He could put it underwater. We make it liquid cooled. All non-Flex radios that I know of today, except maybe remote hams, I've forgotten about that, will require you to be skilled in setting up port forwarding, dynamic DNS, and all those little. They're not hard, but and there's certainly enough information around about how to do it, but you'd have to go through that path at least. But I might have a bit of help with that too. All right, the remote PC. Talked a lot about it already. I think I mentioned this before I started, but for those for the recording, I've run a remote PC at the radio end for almost ever, except for one winter. I thought, I can go without it, and I'll just tunnel all the RS-232 ports back to the house. This will be so cool. And it just drove me bonkers. And I was a road warrior at the same time. I work in data protection, data backup world. I was at a lot of banks throughout the world. And I found that Tuesday night in the hotel room after my clubhouse sandwich and fries, I couldn't get on the air. Because there was just no way to do, I had to remote back to the house to remote into so that went away. We talked about the ability to share your station with somebody, to share it with a shut-in, to take an iPad running the software into a hospital to see a ham that may be, in hospice, and he can tell all his friends on 75 meters about a whole new series of drugs everybody else never heard of. you know, as they do on 75 meters.
Quick question. 4 separate flex radios. Do I need 4 PCs?
No, you don't. You only need one PC. Question was, if I have 4 separate flex radios and Rick's building a contest station or a big station, do I need more than one PC? And the answer is no. Now, if you're going to use all 4 at the same time doing something different, you might want to dedicate this PC for station 1, this PC for station 2, 3, but it's not a limitation. Depends what else you want to do under the covers. Make sense? Okay.
I want all 4 stations.
Then you're going to do 4 PCs. Just build stations. So we talked about this, but this gives us our, you know what? One of the cool features of the most powerful is I get customers that call us with, I can't figure out why my radio went offline. And they have no tool inside the network to poke around, use tools like ping. Can you ping the radio? Do you know if it's even on? And with the PC inside the remote, you have the tool to look at your firewall or your router or any of those other tools to see if you can learn a bit more about what's going on. Remote desktop we talked about. Flex radios require a software to do a software update. You need to be right there with the PC. Now, I don't expect anybody of you to do a remote software update. I do it all the time. I've only ever once had one that failed. That was a long time ago. But I'm up and down daily remotely. And then if something really happens and that SD card probably has long gone, I was probably looking to get out of the house for a drive anyway. And again, remote desktop operation we talked about just makes it easy to share and get inside. And we talked about the elements, TeamViewer, AnyDesk, Chrome Remote Desktop. Is there any other one that VNC actually works really well now? It's like, no.
Why Chrome?
Why Chrome?
Why Windows Chrome?
Oh, because you don't want your computer to reboot in the middle of a contest. And they force the software updates. Pro also gives you the remote desktop Windows RDP solution enabled. If not, then you can't use classic RDP. You have to use any of the other solutions. It's not a showstopper. And none of this is about transmit and receive audio. This is just about command and control and operating. And that's sort of what mine looks like. On a single screen, so we've got, I'm running JTDX. I've got my rotor control here for the 403A and Rotor Genius. I've got the amplifier and the tuner, and yes, you can give me a hard time for running a gazillion watts on FT8.
How do you get the audio back to the client?
That's a good question. So the question is, how do I get audio back from the client? That's all handled in the radio software world. So forget about trying to route the radio audio back to the operator through the computer. So divorce yourself of that idea. That'll drive you crazy. Not impossible, it'll drive you crazy. All right, the VPN part. So I asked ChatGPT to draw me a picture of a guy trying to configure his VPN. I didn't, remember the earlier picture? Okay, I use ChatGPT a lot. I said, draw me a picture. The guy's facing the wrong way. He's facing this way. My slide deck sort of always flow this way. And I said, okay, I like the picture, ChatGPT. Can you turn it 180 degrees? Yeah, you know what? I got it back. It was upside down. So I tried to fix that. I couldn't. So I dropped it in I use Google Slides and just flipped the slide. It was just sort of funny. If you don't know what ports are and why open ports should scare you, you can grab this slide later and read it and go to the website. But ports are, you've probably heard, or if you've heard anything, is don't open a port on your router, it's bad. Well, we actually open ports all the time. It's just how do you manage them correctly. Please never open an unsecured port, which means if you ever hear that, if somebody says, I need to open a port, your next question, is it secured or unsecured? And if he says unsecured, the answer is no, for whatever reason. And mostly you don't have to worry about it much anymore, but if you're hacking around, you know, if you want to put a little web server or your Node-RED server behind, and you have to open port 1880, wrong, don't do that. That's how people get control. This is where you actually do want to use a thing like a VPN. So the VPN allows us to now sit, we're going to say home, and still have access to all the equipment behind the radio. And it's pretty surprising how much stuff you build up behind the radio on the network. Like I have thermometers, I have web switches, and that's not even including the Internet of Things, which generally handle this already for us, so you don't need to worry about it for them. But the PC is behind the firewall. We need to connect to that, and that's another way, like plan B, to do that. So I'm going to talk a bit about Tailscale. I'll give you the high picture, but it just sort of works. Here's a good example of why, too. External rotor controllers with IP addresses, they generally don't have secure web logins. So this is where... So Tailscale, you sign up with an account. It needs to be a secure account, so they want you to use sort of these secure logins, your Gmail, like a single sign-on type thing. They talk about why they went down that path just to ensure it's secure. And you generally install a small client on Linux, Windows, Docker, all these things. Okay, you install it, and you log in with that client to whatever email address username you made. You then get a list of things. They show up on the Tailscale webpage, and they look like this. These are all the IP addresses. Don't worry about it if they're not in the same subnet. Okay, I'm never going to remember all these. You know, usually I'm good for 3 digits. I know my 6600 is on, I know the subnet, but it's .76, and the 6700 is .78. But if I put a new thing on now, I don't remember anymore. The beauty is you can edit this name. So I can just say radio, control panel, whatever. And this one where it says subnet, that's been opened up that it will also see all the IP addresses on that subnet, all the ones I know, 192.168.1.1.2.3, which means if I was somewhere over here operating or on the air, I can access all that equipment the old-fashioned VPN way. So right now we're way ahead of setting up OpenVPN, Soft Ether, etc. By the way, this is WireGuard under the covers. WireGuard's really well respected. They call this the magic DNS. $0 for the first 50. In fact, I wanted to go pay them because I use it, but it's like the next package up is huge. And it was like, are you guys okay? I'm okay. If there was a donate me sheet, I'll use it. $0. So now, you know how for you guys using sort of remote hardware, you had to type an http:// IP address. So like this, that's my Node-RED page. Now I go http Node-RED and the port or anything after the entire blah, 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 blah. And I actually only configured this a week ago, and I've been going nonstop on it, going, oh yeah, I needed to do something. Before I would just wait till I got back on the remote desktop. But you need to sketch this out and see how you want to use it. But it is as simple as that. We're done, we're configured. And you want to install it on your iPhone or your Android phone because you want access to that. Maybe you want to see the rotor controller, which is a web page. Yeah. And this is just a summary of what I said, and that subnet thing is the subnet router mode. I found their documentation well written in plain English, and it was. I didn't actually look at any of the documentation, but if this is new to you, I think you're going to find it pretty easy. And there's a ton of videos about that other people have done about setting up Tailscale for my home network. Just insert home with remote. How many people, anybody use PSTRotator? So it's sort of the Swiss Army knife of controlling things. It can control a bunch of different external relays, and we can have it running on that remote PC all the time. And that's why the other reason we have it there. We can connect radios to it, rotators, steppers. It's ham lib aware type of thing. It's got a little built-in web server. So guess what? Now we use the magic DNS name to get to the little web server to turn the relay or the rotator 20 degrees. Rather than, if I used to do it, I would actually open a port, 100% unsecured. Yeah, I had a username password, but it can be broken in a second. And for external relays, it can control all these devices. I'm a big fan of the KMtronic stuff. I've just been their service. Rick?
Have you heard about the stuff from Europe called Modius?
I have not. Emodius?
53 out Remodius.
Remodius?
Modius. Look it up. It's,
Maybe I have. There's a couple of things that were brand new I didn't get a chance to. And there's all new stuff coming. I've got an answer to you. And PSTRotator can be automated. So hey, if I go to 40 meters, turn this relay on, maybe for antenna switching. His only flaw is he can only support one relay board. He doesn't do two. So that's 8 relay devices. Because at some point in time, no matter what you have there, you're going to have to power cycle for some silly reason. All right, this is my ham shack. It might be from, it might be Whopper. I forgot where I got that picture. But to put it in perspective, when I was hired by IBM at an avionics school in North Bay, my first job was working for NORAD on a tube computer, 6146s for everybody. That's for a memory tube. And it was 600 feet underground. And it was called the ANFSQ7. And you can go find pages of it online. It took up a football field for one of them. We had 2 of them. And we had rooms that looked like that. Maybe that's why I've always liked so many monitors. So thanks to Internet of Things as another option for controlling stuff. There are so many web switches available to just roll your own or do a simple on-off thing. If you've just got a radio and a single antenna, it's pretty straightforward. It's a vertical. I don't need a rotator. I don't need to band change. You could add in, I didn't put this slide in, there's a couple of remote antenna disconnect switches. Sadly, there's no application that throws the coax out the window in a lightning storm. So you have to add a couple of arc plugs and pray, especially if you're in Florida. But, digital logger I/O has been around forever. Dan N7HQ likes these smart devices from Shelly. I've never used them. And then I just searched on Amazon, for IoT web remote switch. And they make them in a ton of different versions for iPhone, Android. If you're looking for a 221, look for a pool heater. Pool, like swimming pool heater. You probably don't have them here. It's too warm. But anyway, they're there. I found this common app called Tuya or whatever, and I found it supported a bunch of different makers switches. So that means I could just pop it open on my iPhone and do some quick, turn the fans off type of thing. And like an idea of pricing. This MH Cozy switch, Flex Radio sells this. This will do 4 devices. If you don't solder, you can buy pigtails on Amazon. You can buy pigtail splitters because the security guys use these 2.1 millimeter Canon connectors. Wonderful. I can plug in a whole bunch of things at once. Okay, got to get them a little close. Or extension cords for it. Y cables. Amazon has been, great for little things like that. Things like this. Smart plugs. It's like $20 for 4 of them.
And a good app.
And a good app. The Tuya app, but I urge you to test them. Some of them, like my Wyses, WYSEs, they disappear. And then you phone the guy and say, hey, it disappeared. Oh yeah, I just unplug it and replug it in. So you're telling me my smart switch needs a smart switch. Well, that's the way we think. And of course, we need those switches, as I said earlier, because Murphy was an optimist. Right? It will go wrong. If you drive away, like I said, how many repeater operator guys here? All our job ever was to make sure we didn't have to go back to the hill to adjust the squelch. All right, some cool hardware solutions in the Flex world. If you're going to do remote and you're using a Flex radio, grab a Maestro. Not inexpensive, but if you're big into your hobby, then you know it's $15.99. I think we might have it on sale. But everything plugs into the back of the Maestro for the operator. The microphone, the headphones, the CW key, works with SmartLink. You can come and see. We got a bunch of them connected to different remote sites right now. We got headphones. You can put it on and listen. They're not like a FTDX 5000, which if you've seen me before, it's a common question. How many buttons or knobs on the front of that radio? FTDX 5000 or 101D. It's 118 with multiple levels of shift in 6-point font. All right, you know, anybody got magnifying glasses near their radio with a light? Okay, you don't have to fess up, but. All right, Sierra Designs. Ham Radio Workbench listeners are aware of George Zaphalopoulos, and he's talked about his station controller. This is gorgeous. As a geeky guy like me, we have a Pi here running it. We have he calls this the GPIO board. I'm going to give him a big plug for this. It can control up to 8 relays. It can do 4 voltages and 2 temperatures right there. And you can have more than one board because they're all addressable. It's got I don't have the, he does have it. It's got a watt meter board here where you can hook up 2 watt meters. Watt meter, got to have a remote watt meter because I need to know if I'm getting no watts or lots of watts. Oh, it's just one of my awesome debugging tools. He's designed that you buy you go to Wave Node, you buy a Wave Node thing for $100 for whatever band power or whatever you need. The one on top, oh, maybe that's the watt meter. And he's got another 4-port, 100-watt only antenna switch. Well, George is a QRP guy. So if enough guys nag him, he'll maybe make a bigger one. But maybe you can also look at Richard, VE2DX. That's that all-red booth across from us. He's got some really good antenna switches that would integrate to this. Now, in my world, those are not, let me back up. Those blue cables are not LAN cables. There's a LAN cable down here for the Pi. That's how we're going to control it using Node Red control panel. But these are just interface cables. They carry power to each one, so you only have to hook up power to one. And we've heard of RS-232, which is good for 8 feet legally. This is RS-485. I've run it 13 kilometers. So I will take, in my remote station this summer, when I change this all out, I'm taking this GPIO board and I'm putting it at the base of the tower. And I'll have 8 relays at the base of the tower to do stuff I need to do out there that generally I would have carried the wire all the way back in. Which if I really do it right, I'll go build a shed at the base of the tower, move all the radio equipment out there, get rid of a pile of coax, and I'll hear better and have more RF out in the air because there was less coax loss. Anyway, PAC10, you can find that at pactenna.com. And I don't think it's going to be, we don't know what the pricing is, but it's not $50 a board. It'll be more, but I guarantee you're going to love it. And there's the control panel for it. It's a little eye-charty, but this is what it comes with stock. It's ready to go. If you're a Node Red person, you can modify that to your heart's content. So here's our relay control, the 4-port antenna switch. In my case, I only have 1 antenna in the house. It's my 4-port radio switch. type of thing. Well done. I've been part of that. So, anybody use Morconi? Heard of Morconi? So Max, a couple of months ago, reached out to me and said, I want to build an Android solution for CW. Flex Radio doesn't have an inexpensive hand-send CW solution. I nag the right people occasionally often, then I've been told not to bring it up anymore. But in all kindness, they get it. So Max went and wrote some code, sits on an Arduino, and it talks to the radio. And you could do this over the VPN by doing that subnetty thing. You have to edit a card, and here's a little SD card for the configuration file. It's a little bit of work. But I can plug a key in here. I got side tone. I got speed. And if you're a hand-send CW guy and you're not going to invest in a Maestro, the Morconi is something really good to look at. And the last thing is the Linovation stuff. These are not expensive remote control VF knobs and VFO knobs and push-to-talk, more designed to MIDI stuff, which makes it like Smart SDR for iOS and anything that can control MIDI. Smart SDR for Windows does not support MIDI, so it won't work with that. Flex Radio has a control knob that works really well for $199 or something like that. And Linovations. So these cool ones are, I think, $89, and the rest of them are less money. And he's a cool guy, and he's always got something. And if you're an RHR, remote ham operator, they're interfaced with the RHR. So, and they actually feel really good as a VFO knob. Yeah, that works with the iPad. The question was, does that work with the iPad and stuff? So if you do your homework right, you end up with a station where on Sunday morning you sit in front of the fire with your tea and get on your 80-meter net with your buddies. All right, everybody, thank you for your time.